So there was the Hollywood Farmers Market. This is when there was a time where LA was just fucking grooving, man. Like 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like it was really cool. Like LA felt great. And I was teaching yoga at the Hollywood Y, and it was packed. I was a lunatic. I didn't give a shit.
I remember you telling me these stories.
Like I had 19 tackles against Ohio State. So the fact that I was like a yoga teacher with 60 students, like I wasn't ego tripping on that. Like I would.
And you're putting them on the wall.
Oh, I wanted to kill them in a loving, spiritual way. I wanted to destroy them.
And they wanted that.
They wanted it. They loved it.
Especially in LA.
They loved it. And I would crack jokes the whole time. And, we'd end with something like a good like gong or om, like we'd keep it some aspect of that. But I'm in the line. There was a craft coffee place at the Hollywood Farmers Market on Saturday morning, and it's packed. And this line would just go and go. And this place did artisan pour-overs. They had like all these artisan coffees from Central and South America, and they were doing pour-overs. In like 2007, something. This is like the pour-over was just starting. So it would take a minute to get your coffee. And then they would describe the beans of what was going on. And the show Portlandia had just come out. And there's a scene in Portlandia. We've sent this among the men's group. One of the guys in the men's group, Jared Picard, who's an incredible like farmer, artisan, farmer body skincare manufacturer. Whenever he brings a food in, he has a whole story of the food, which is really like what food should be. There should be a story with it. But we always kind of tease him. And I sent him this clip from Portlandia of the chicken guru story. Did you ever see this one? Okay. Yeah. So basically, like, if you've never seen it, this couple goes out to a restaurant and they're ordering chicken, and the waiter's talking about how happy the chicken was. And they say, "Can we verify this?" And they walk through the back door of the restaurant, and they're in this like chicken guru compound where the guru makes love to various women in front of the chickens, because the chickens like to prove
it's the vibe.
Like it goes to the most absurd level of like, food culture and pre-wokeism and shit like that. So I'm in this coffee line. And there's a woman in front of me, and she's going through every fucking bean. It's 8:30 in the morning. The line's building and building. I want to know the story of this bean and this bean. And there's 6 different pour-overs that they can do that day. And she's literally like, it's totally obnoxious. She's taking up so much time. So she finally orders 2 cups of whatever, Antigua, Guatemala or something. And then her husband comes up, like wasn't in the line. He jumps in the line, and he's like, "What'd you order?" And she says, "Well, I ordered the Nicaraguan." And he's like, "Oh, but what about the other beans?" And they start over again. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? This is like an episode of Portlandia. Look behind you. And they both turn around, and they're in the cast of Portlandia.
No. Dude, that's very on brand for you.
Fucking totally on brand.
No, you're like the Forrest Gump of celebrities.
And I didn't let him off the hook. I'm like, seriously. The fucking Nicaragua, I know it's like you're in the show. So like you're a cliche of something that you are making fun of. Just order the Nicaraguans. Look behind you. It's going to be fine. So I'm here with Jesse Elder, who's become a very good friend of mine. Thanks to Cal Callahan, that amazing men's group. Yeah. All kinds of good stuff. Jesse, so this is like, for me, this is really interesting having a conversation with you and spending, because I'm cooking during men's group and we have our moments and stuff like that, which is nice, but like getting like really into it. We've had a couple of occasions and so forth, but this is going to be like our deepest time to get into it. And I really like spending time with people who are wired so differently than me. Like their wiring is just in a very inspiring kind of way. Because I'm like totally in the householder stage of life. Like I got wife, I got kids, I got 2 super athlete boys. Yeah. My brand is like, has to be packaged and manufactured, And so you are incredibly free. Like just to tell you a little bit about Jesse, like you went through a time period where you wanted to zero out your money every month just to have that experience. So the freedom and the courage that you live your life with is like completely inspiring. I find like really entertaining and fascinating to be around. And so there's a lot of great podcasts that you've done that go through your origin story and how you evolved. And we'll kind of touch into that. But like where did that come from? Like where does a guy who's like, I'm going to zero out every month just to push the limits of what my capacity can be, so how much I can earn each month so that I can make my monthly nut. And you're living in the 6G when you're doing this too, right?
I lived in 7 different homes during that time. They were all like $2 million plus places.
Yeah. So you're like, you're not talking about making $1,200 bucks a month.
It was a luxury. Yeah.
You're talking about living in a luxury apartment complex, and you decide to zero out every month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, where does that evolve from? Like, where did that dude emerge from?
First of all, dude, so good to be here. Thank you.
Great.
And
No,
just
it's
really,
exciting.
really looking forward. I mean, our conversations are always epic, and the group that we seem to run with is every single character is totally unique. And I find myself still sometimes, when all of us are hanging out, I'll just have this like zoomed out moment of like, how the fuck did I end up here? Like, how did I get to be like one of these guys?
Yeah.
Because, growing up, homeschooled, born in Austin, grew up in Texas, oldest of 5, never been to school, had a Tom Sawyer childhood, a lot of love, but no direction. There was never like, this is what you should do. This is what it was none of that. It was like, let's just see what this kid wants to do. And
your dad he became a school teacher, or he was a school teacher when he made this choice for you?
He became a school teacher.
When they made the choice just to let you live a self-directed youth, and your parents weren't like crazy hippies. They're Texans, right?
Yeah, they're from Northeast. My dad was born in Michigan, grew up in Connecticut. My mom grew up on Long Island, and they met when she went to nursing school.
Did you say Mung Island?
Long Island. Yeah, Long
Okay.
Island.
Oh, well.
Yeah, no idea where Mung Island might be.
Sounds
like a reality show.
Mung Island would be, the Hmong people are from Laos.
Right.
They're I know them from the cannabis industry because they're the workforce of the cannabis industry in Northern California. It's a totally wild stories.
Yeah. And very different than Long Island, I'm sure.
Very different than Long Island. Yeah,
Freeport. She grew up in Freeport.
These people will eat, when they settle into an area to do the trimming and the harvesting, they will eat and forage that area to like a zero-sum game. Like every frog, every deer, everything that comes by, they will capture, kill, and be cooking. And you'll join them, the trimmers. You're talking about somebody who's had a wild life, but you'll be like, oh, this curry smells delicious. What is this? It's like, oh, this is the frog and the deer that we killed. I'm like, well, it's not hunting season.
Wow.
Like, no, we found it.
For them, as always for them. Yeah, far cry from Jones Beach and Freeport, Long Island. Well, they met in, my mom was going to nursing school, and her roommate was my dad's sister. And so the roommate introduced them, and it was love at first sight. And they were just like instantly like, yes. And then a couple of years later, I was born, and according to them, like I was a baby, so I can't verify this, but according to them, they both just looked at me and they were like, for whatever reason, we feel like this kid is going to know what he needs for himself more than we do.
Oh.
So,
and these, just to set the context, because I know people who have been unschooled like that, but these parents were like Northern California, like hardcore LSD hippies, and they pushed this on their children, this kind of unschooling wildness and so forth. Like this was a middle-class, fairly conservative San Antonio family at this point, right?
I wouldn't say conservative. My dad, he was also the oldest of his family, and his father ran a very successful machine shop business. So, World War II, the boom, and now, they had money. And, but my dad was always the black sheep of the family. So when he graduated Catholic University, decided that he was going to be as, kind of off the beaten path and go explore. So he joined the Peace Corps right out of university and went all through Central America and fell in love with the culture and just fell in love with the people. And then when he got out of the Peace Corps, he was in Panama, and they said, we'll give you, we'll buy a plane ticket back to New Haven, or we'll just give you the money. And he's like, give me the cash. So they give him a couple $100 cash. He buys a motorcycle in Panama City, drives the motorcycle up to New Haven, and it was like a 3-month adventure.
Wow.
And right after,
we've got to be talking like mid-60s, late 60s?
Yeah, mid to late 60s.
What a different time.
Totally different time.
I mean, just like to think about there was some degree of threat to doing that, but you could do it.
You could do it.
Yeah.
And he had a letter from the police, one of the police chiefs in Panama, basically saying, this is a good guy.
Oh.
He works for the Peace Corps. And he said, give that letter to any fire department or any police station, and they'll let you crash there for the night.
This was before they knew the Peace Corps was a construct of the CIA. And
I think they knew, and they were like, you're still cool. We'll get into all that today too. But anyway, he gets back from the Peace Corps and was immediately drafted. So went to Vietnam.
He went to Vietnam.
Yeah, and that was.
Did he see combat?
He was a medic. So he definitely saw some shit. And just, man, he was such a sweet, peaceful, gentle guy that to go from the Peace Corps to being drafted in Vietnam was like, it devastated him. Like to the end of his life, he said, "That's the biggest regret that I have is that I allowed myself to go instead of just taking CO status, conscientious objector, going to jail." He said, "I would far rather have gone to jail than be drafted."
Wow.
So, but he got back, and not long after that, I was born, and they moved to Texas, or they moved to Texas. They were living in San Marcos at the time, and then it was just I just have so many overwhelmingly positive memories of growing up where it's like, do your chores in the morning and then we'll see you at dinner. We love you. So I'd get on my bike and go to the library and load my backpack up with books and just read 5-6 hours a day, whatever I was interested in. Got into martial arts when I was a kid.
Can I do a timeout?
Yeah.
Because, I know that, you haven't had children, but you were part of a relationship where you were around young children, which was also in the 2010s. Could something like
that? Good
that,
memory.
Yeah. Could something like that work today? Or would the phone and social media, do you think without the structure? Because we have friends in common who are doing unschooling, homeschooling, all kinds of different amalgams of that. But do you think you could raise a child the way with computers and the internet and social media and a phone? Could you
it's a big question.
With that much freedom from a parent?
It's a big question. Obviously, anything that I have to say is going to be conjecture because, I was married for 10 years. She had 3 kids already when we got married, but that was right before the iPhone. So totally different landscape. I believe, based on my childhood and the experience of growing up, we had this little black and white TV, and back then there was only 3 stations anyway. Yeah. So it's like, that's if you get the rabbit ears working just right and you stand doing a yoga pose, one of your yoga poses from LA, and then you get reception. But my parents were it never felt oppressive and it never felt like things were being taken away from us. But it was, remember the old TV guides? Mm-hmm. So we'd get the TV guide at the beginning of the week and get a highlighter, and you could highlight the 3 hours of TV you wanted to watch that week. Yep. So it became like a currency. Yep. And it was like, okay, I'm going to skip Cheers this week because I want to watch Little House on the Prairie on Friday. Yeah. So we just moved the currency around. Yeah.
But the reason why they called cable, when cable first came out, it was a box.
Actual box.
With a cable that ran the TV, and there was 18 different buttons, clink, that you could push on it.
And you could just satisfyingly
and it was
click.
It was like an old-fashioned
switchboard.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And there was 18, and always 15 of the 18 just had shit on it that you wouldn't nothing, especially
except
if off
maybe
hours.
Around midnight you could squint and see a nipple. Yeah. You're just like, wait,
the Robin Bird show, wasn't that it? But it was very, very different times.
Yeah, very different. But one thing that I remember from that I think can be replicated, and I have friends that are doing it, is to just say, this is a no screen day.
Yeah.
And, that gets to, you're going to go through a period of boredom. You're going to go through a period of restlessness, but that's how you develop a personality. That's how a child develops a personality, is through boredom, not by having things provided for them and given to them or over-structured. And so can it be done? 100%.
Yeah.
But I think that certainly my family and my parents didn't approach it as a consumer of a solution, which is what I see a ton of people doing now. You and I have had some great conversations about law and about the private realm versus public realm. And when I'm teaching a course called Law Dojo, which you came to one of the events, the thing that we're constantly discouraging people to do is that you can't come to this like a consumer. You can't come to this like, okay, show me the answer. Tell me tell me what buttons to push. No, it's got to be from the inside out. And for me, that really does go back to childhood. And I got that, man, I had such an awesome opportunity and such a privilege to work with thousands of kids in martial arts. We built the most profitable, successful by every metric chain of martial arts schools in the world.
What was the name of them?
Victory Martial Arts.
And what
I was very lucky to have a mentor who invited me to become a partner, and watching from the inside out how that was done, mind blowing.
How many schools did you have?
There was 8 that I had ownership in. Total now, I think Victory's probably over 100. But what was interesting about that industry is that it's a totally unregulated industry. So there is no oversight except the market. So you can iterate fast and you are rewarded or punished fast by what works and what doesn't work. So we were able to iterate with all these different, other martial arts schools are teaching, the technique, and they're almost dogmatic and like, this is our style, but we saw it totally differently. I mean, I opened my first school when I was 23 and I didn't really care about style. I cared about the people, and the style was a vehicle, especially for these kids, to develop life skills and not just, mimic the words.
Let me ask him, because like we have the person we actually are, we have the person that we imagine ourselves to be, and then we have the person that we kind of imagine that we were as we look back on our lives.
Yeah, it's crowded in there.
That's right. So when you were 23, because this is a very high level of thinking, especially somebody who's elevated through the martial arts, like, were you really thinking, I'm going to make this school about the people?
100%.
Wow. Well, that's
100%.
deep. That's black belt level. That's black belt level, like marketing and thought about business and.
I appreciate that. It was actually absolute ignorance because I had no idea how to market. I had no idea how to sell.
Yeah, but just the fact that as a 23-year-old, because a 23-year-old be like, this is what I have to offer. Yeah. And it's like, it's Jeet Kune Do, it's Taekwondo, it's Kemp, whatever it is, especially in the martial arts lineage.
I'll tell you why it happened. Because I was a Taekwondo black belt when I was 15, competing in all these tournaments. And by the time I was 19, I'd been in over 100 tournaments, won my fair share of them. And when you're a teenager, you're a young man and deeply socially awkward. Like I couldn't talk to girls to save my life.
I heard you talk about that.
Man, it was comical. Like Napoleon Dynamite had better game than I did. Like it was incredible. But I would then teach and compete. And so I'm getting all this feedback and reinforcement, and I'd go and win a tournament or compete in a tournament, and people would come up and say, good fight, man, good fight, good fight. So you're a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old shy, skinny kid, and you're hearing good fight, good fight, good fight. You start to think you're a good fighter. Turns out there's the fictional realm of LARPing and martial arts, and there's reality. And I ended up going to this house party with the first girl I ever kissed. I thought I was in love. We're at this house party, and there's this guy across the room just mad dogging me. And I asked her, I'm like, what's his deal? And she's like, oh, that's my boyfriend. And I was crushed because I thought I was in love with this girl. And then I'm embarrassed, and then I'm pissed, and like all these emotions. And I took the path of least resistance. I was like, fine. And I just left. I'm walking down the driveway to go back to my car and just go home and just cry probably. And homeboy jumps on me. And it was like Animal Planet. Next thing you know, I'm on the ground. This guy's fucking raining punches down on me. First thought in my mind is, he's going to get disqualified. Because that's how indoctrinated I was in, spar, tag, break, 1 point, red, like that. No, I'm getting my head pounding into the pavement. I'm like, oh shit, like too late for a sidekick now, too late for a rising block. This is not going to work. Luckily, people pulled us apart. This guy is yelling threats at me, and I'm going through this moral checklist in my mind. I'm like, he started it, right? Because I've never been in a fight before. He started it. He started. Okay, 3, 2, 1. And I round kicked him in the head, and he just like fell down.
Spinning?
No, just a roundhouse kick.
Okay.
But I was.
Oh, it's brutal.
It was brutal.
It's brutal. And good, like solid. Flush the foot or shin.
I wasn't trying to take his head off, but you could also in that situation, you can't like tap somebody because that would just escalate the situation. So I wanted to make sure it was one kick and at least he's out. Buy me some time because I'm getting out of there. I was so emotionally overwhelmed.
Yeah. So
I left, drive away. As fate, law of attraction, whatever would have it, it was probably a couple weeks later, one of my other my early mentors, who is here in Austin, called me and he said, hey, I want you to come up and train this weekend. I was like, all right. And he was always showing me cool stuff. He had a very successful school. He's the first guy ever trained me on a phone script, how to answer the phone the right way. So I really respected this guy. I get to his school in Austin and he was like, come on the mat. And he says, lay down on the ground. And I was like, huh? Okay. So I could lay down on the ground. He said, okay, I'm going to mount you. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'd never heard of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Nobody had heard of it.
What year are we for context?
This is the year before UFC 1.
So
like 92. So nobody knew
anything
about jiu-jitsu. Anyway, he mounts me and he's like, all right, try. And then he says, try and get me off. I was like, what is this? Like, first you're going to mount me, then you try to tell me to get you off. Like, this is weird. But I trusted him, and I realized that I'm helpless on the ground. And now he's doing submission after submission. I'm like, I have to learn this. And that was my baptism in reality that got me away from being style focused.
Yeah.
And got me into all I care about is results.
Yeah.
All that matters is what works in the real world.
Yeah. You're 19 at the time?
19. Yeah.
For a 19-year-old trained in the martial arts lineage to be so non-dogmatic is pretty telling. That's pretty.
Well, I had great mentors, man. Yeah. It's just, I've always been fascinated with, what works. Growing up as a feral kid in South Texas, like, if you don't know how to tie a knot properly or recognize the fraying in the rope, your rope swing is going to fall and you're going to break your neck.
Yeah.
So it's like that very self-reliant, it's like I had survival kits on my backpack in my pockets and, it always seemed like a good idea to me to be prepared. Anyway, now I'm training jiu-jitsu. I went to a seminar with Hoyce and Horian, and when I came back, I knew more jiu-jitsu than anybody in San Antonio, except for the other couple of guys that were training. And then it really fundamentally changed my worldview because, I'm also in this crisis of faith and purpose and like, do I have a purpose? And, Tony Robbins is saying one thing, but then Deepak Chopra is saying something else, and they seem to contradict each other. And I realized that there was this almost a monopoly on truth, especially if there is a price tag. If you're teaching personal development, spiritual growth, and people are paying you for that, you can't help but have your ego invested in saying this is the path. And so I'm in all this crisis of conscience and or faith and purpose. I don't know what's what, but I've got this fiction martial arts experience and this real world fight experience. And all of a sudden it hit me. I don't really care what's true. I care what's useful. And I didn't understand this for many years, but what I was doing then was I was aggressively split testing entire paradigms. Like I'm gonna be this guy, all in.
Were you influenced by Bruce Lee as a young martial artist? Just even like just some of his lines, like "be like water" and all these things.
I heard that, but I was like, how is that useful? It's like I watched the movies growing up, and it was just never a big influence. Hoyce for sure changed my life, and many of my mentors changed my life. But it was that testing, that if it works, I'll double down. And the moment it doesn't work, I'll make sure I applied it properly. And if I applied something properly that fails, it's dead to me. And I was able to eliminate beliefs, ideas, worldviews that didn't mesh with my lived experience of life. So when I opened my school, I'd already been teaching for, 7-8 years, and I could see the difference between following a lesson plan that was style focused versus following a lesson plan where you use every student's name 3 times. You address all the parents at least twice during the class. You're doing call and response with the parents. You're getting the parents involved in cheering and clapping. And those are the ones that stayed. And I realized I can't afford to be a style purist. Oh, you are now a white belt. You will now do this. Like this is a long game. Like if we're going to be working with these kids for years, why not make the first 3 months mind-blowingly fun, like to the point of being addictive? We were dopamine dealers. And the entire thing was you look good, you look tough, you act tough, but nobody gets hurt. It's this hyper-positive environment, especially for kids, 0 correction. If a kid's under 6 years old, 0 correction. If they're supposed to have their left leg in front and they put their right leg, you say, yeah, good warrior face. Now do it this way. And then they do it this way. You go, yeah, that's the good foot. Da, da, da. It's pure positive. And I just, through pattern recognition, I just found out that, I was teaching, sometimes 30 classes a week. So you're getting to iterate a lot of things. And I was still so deeply insecure relationally and emotionally that I couldn't see how I could have the life of like being this guy, being Mr. Elder on the mat and have a girlfriend or have a family. And so my insecurities manifested as overcompensation in the professional realm. So I became the best instructor. It's like, we have a lot of comedian friends and people that we're fans of in common. Comedy there's a reason they're so funny. And there's a reason a lot of comedians kill themselves, because it's like there's a void that applause makes go away for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when you get back home and it's just you? And so I went through some very dark times, but teaching saved me every time. Because when I was super depressed and questioning, should I even be on this planet? It's like, well, I can indulge in that line of thought for a while, but class starts at 3:15. Then you show up.
Do you think that the kind of the homeschooling, unschooling, because you didn't have any team sports, right?
No.
And then you were the oldest brother too, right? Would you guys take the piss out of each other pretty hard in your family? And did you like have that locker room camaraderie or so the locker room camaraderie is parallel to like the men going on the quest or the hunt. There's something ancient to that.
Critical.
And pushing each other and testing each other and testing and developing emotional toughness and resiliency. It all has to deal with is this person going to be able to hold their shield up?
Right.
Are they gonna land the end of the spike when the woolly mammoth is approaching? And I'm the one that's running.
Yep.
So there's a lot of that. Because you grew up in this martial arts world where I'm imagining like you were the youngest and you had these older mentors and it was more of a serious traditional kind of martial arts student to teacher relationship. Did you miss that gap of like the bro hang and learning how to like, that you either get through siblings or you mostly get through like team sport and kind of the...
I've never been asked that question before. That's a great question. Within the family, I think I just always had, from my perspective, my experience, more of like the protector, be a good role model. And so we did tons of things. We spent so much time together, but I would say it was way deeper than locker room. It was just like, we just always got each other. And then my parents got divorced. I was 20, so my siblings were correspondingly younger, and everybody went to school at that point. Just two families, and at that point, everybody's life paths from the beginning were always very unique. But the locker room piece, I think I got it mostly from training partners and mentors, and then you'd all go to a tournament together. But it was bigger than a team because it was the school, and there was definitely some camaraderie there. I didn't experience true team culture until I was building my business and hiring team members, and it's all hands on deck, and that was different. And then many, many years later in life, my brothers and I ended up recreating that as they had their own families and business and all sorts of different things. And we were able to connect as adults in a very different way. Powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that.
Well,
really
it seems like there was like, if you think about like, proper evolution and the public school model and team sport model, that leaves like a lot to be desired. In fact, there's probably more benefit of the way you were done things. But like the one evolutionary piece that is pretty good in there is like learning that how to get along, natural places in hierarchy, emotional resiliency, how not to take yourself so seriously. And your youth almost seems to be a little schizophrenic in a way, like you were isolated on your own, riding to the library, going to get books, and then had this very kind of traditional relationship with probably men who were a little bit older than you experienced, which is more of the traditional, respectful kind of martial arts to teacher relationship. There was like a middle gap that seemed to be missing a little bit.
That piece was there. And I'll augment the bike riding library piece. We had so many friends. There was like 50 families that were all doing homeschooling, and they were like my best friends. Wow. So we every week somewhere we were going to somebody's house or their ranch or their farm, or they were all coming to our house. So
I'd never even heard of that concept until 15 years ago.
It was bustling.
Wow.
Well, and credit to my parents and all those other really pioneer parents. In the 70s, there was like 13,000 American kids total that were doing homeschooling, who weren't Amish or Mennonite or more mainstream kids. Now there's like 3.6 million. Mind blowing.
Yeah.
But we had a tight crew, and so there was plenty of social interactions. But then when I started, especially when I started teaching, and I'm like 15, my instructors were all in their late 20s and they basically just adopted me. But because I had such a high trust childhood with my parents and there was really never anything to hide. And if I encountered something that I was curious about, or if I wanted their opinion on, I'd ask them, what do you think? Is this okay? Like I remember asking my mom lyrics to a Van Halen song because Sammy Hagar's singing, and I'll be damned if I'll get hung up on the line. And I'm like, ooh, he said, damn. And I played it for my mom. It's like, what do you think? Is this okay? And she was like, oh yeah, you're good. Oh, I like that song. Make me a mixtape. So it's super high trust. So by the time I'm 15 and my instructor wants to go, two-stepping with his girlfriend and a bunch of the other guys, I just called my parents, said, hey, they're going to take me to this place called the Blue Bonnet Palace and I'll be home late. She's like, okay. And that was that.
Cool.
So yeah, it was definitely unorthodox. And I would say that has continued to this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of, well, just before I ask this question, tell us about like what you do now and your time piercing element. And then I'll kind of come back and I'll ask some of the questions that like bridge the gap from the martial artist to the kind of life coach, teacher, the things that you're doing and into now. Yeah. So kind of tell us like what Jesse Elder is like all about right now and what you're doing and so forth.
Yeah. In big picture, it's really just more of the same. When I sold my business, I sold my schools in 2012. And then 6 months later, I was divorced and very willingly agreed to have 80% of the sale price of the business go to support her and the kids. So I was starting over.
Wow.
I had a couple $1,000 a month coming in, nowhere near enough to make rent, and a beautiful Mercedes that I was too upside down in to get out of and all this kind of stuff. But I knew enough to just keep shedding anything that felt like it wasn't me. And so 2013 was it was a year of reckoning. It was a year of putting every belief that I had under the microscope. Does that still serve me moving forward? Does it allow me to be useful and uniquely valuable? Or is that a defense mechanism that's keeping me, playing small? And every time I had a little extra money, I would go to an event. I'd go to an entrepreneurial event, a marketing event, because I knew that's where the future was. And I was also, again, kind of insecure because I didn't know what my value was. I had spent decades building this, amazing organization with incredible partners, but I signed an NDA to prevent myself from going back in, so that I had to figure out what the next thing is.
You couldn't go back into the martial arts world.
Yeah.
Non-compete.
Yeah.
Not
non-compete. Thank you.
Yeah, non-compete, not non-disclosure.
And so I would go to these events. And I was so naive, dude. I was convinced that these people who are making money on the internet must be making millions of dollars a day. I mean, we made millions of dollars with no social media, handshake to handshake, going out and talking to 10 people every day, setting some appointments. I can only imagine if you had access to the internet, how much money you'd be making. I legitimately thought that every single marketer, every single entrepreneur I met who had a website was making millions of dollars a day. So I would go to these events and I would just be like I'm watching, a rare creature. You must be a billionaire. I literally thought everybody I met was a billionaire. Maybe not billionaire, but I assumed they were making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And turns out that deep curiosity, but I was also pretty embodied, I mean, I'd been spending, 2 decades teaching, and you just carry yourself differently when you've been through those experiences. And it created this weird, perfect storm where somebody would ask me the question I dreaded of, so what do you do? And I would just feel this shit, I don't know what I do. So I would just deflect it. And I would say, well, I just sold a business, and tell me your story. And then the curiosity came in, which I really wanted to find out how this multimillionaire became this way. Turns out that
deflective questioning,
and then turning the spotlight with sincerity right back onto them. And like, what's your story? was intoxicating.
Yeah.
People couldn't get enough of it. And I remember very specifically, I went to this huge marketing thing in San Diego, traffic and conversion, and I'm just like surrounded by multimillionaires. You know, I'm like starstruck. And I end up in this conversation, very one-sided conversation, as I'm eliciting, you know, tell me your story. And I'm so into what this guy's saying. I'm not saying a word. He's just like going on and on and on. And I'm asking deeper questions about like, you know, where did that come from? Like, how did you decide to do that? And like, how would you describe your purpose in this? And stuff that I was legitimately into. And you see color coming into people's faces, and they're just like they're waking up from some kind of trance. And then the dude grabs a buddy. He's like, hey, come here. You need to listen to this. Guy's the smartest dude here, pointing at me. And I'm like, I have said fuck all. And then I got it. I was like, oh shit. Like, it's not what I said. It's the space that was created that let this guy be more of himself than maybe he'd experienced in a while.
Yeah.
Total vacuum of judgment, deep curiosity with the assumption that he's massively successful. And it turns out that is a very transformative experience for people. So then he's telling his buddy, and next thing you know, I'm delivering this little preach session, you know, for like 15 entrepreneurs. And I just go into this trance and I start talking about purpose and about spontaneous right action and flow and intuition and memory and imagination. I don't even know what's happening. Everybody's just like, who is this guy? And then it was over. Everybody disperses. The guy comes up to me, who became very famous about a year after that. And he's like, hey, let's talk about astrology. I was like, all right, cool. So we start talking about astrology. I don't know this guy's deal, so I lied. He's like, tell me where you were born and when you were born. I totally made it up. Runs the whole thing. He's like, makes sense. It was Ty Lopez.
Oh.
So then Ty just goes off and becomes Ty after that.
But you didn't tell him. You didn't tell him the truth of your...
No. I don't know this
and
guy.
He still said it made sense?
Yeah.
But why did you feel you wouldn't just tell him your birth year?
Because I have no idea this dude's intentions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's personal information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I navigated through 2013. Knowledge. He did add a lot to the space. I'll say that. So that combination of insecurity and curiosity ends up creating a massive, like really survival-based need to grow. And if you keep growing enough, eventually you create some usefulness for other people. And then you can say from lived experience, hey, this is what I found worked. Why don't you test it, try it for yourself? So I made my first online course. It was called The Upgraded Life. It was a 6-week exploration through these concepts, and people loved it. And I paid my rent. And I was very happy. And that led to over 100 different courses since then.
So the interesting thing in knowing you and listening to you, like a lot of the guys in the men's group, like, you know, they'll talk about Paul Chek, they'll talk about a lot of the different people that they've studied with. You don't talk about that much. So like, I'm curious how much of your teaching, how much of your thought process, how much particularly of this time-piercing idea, this is the question I want to get to, like, is the result of, like largely, well, I don't want to say original because we're always pulling from influences around the world and everything, but like, you are certainly not pulling from like the seemingly singular influence of like one particular teacher. So where did it come from? And then did psychedelics have anything to do with the way you approach time and think about time and the way you've been able to kind of canonize that into a form of teaching and how to use time and memory to create healing and in part of your coaching? So like what's the germination and the kind of evolution of your ideas?
Part of that, a big part of it goes back to being a kid, you know, reading tons of books. Later on, you know, being a young man, still reading, but really having a lot of questions because of that early baptism in reality, because of the original effect that full contact fighting had on destroying all my previous ideas. When I would see characters, like people who were black belts, but helpless when it came to jujitsu. And I realized that, your authority only extends to that rule set.
Can you just can we just pause here and just go into the kind of the smoker fights that the club that you were like the early pre-MMA kind of, you spent a year and 11 fights.
Yeah.
Because that helped form a lot of your ideas and the way you look at life. It
solidified a lot that I was already curious about. I was a bouncer at this nightclub in San Antonio, Sneakers nightclub. I can still hear, the radio ads.
Can I just ask like the bouncer question? Because I mean, you're 6'3", but you're
145.
You're skinny.
Yeah.
Did you get did you verbally, kind of conflict resolution, de-escalate situations verbally, or did people think, oh, I'm going to fuck this skinny guy up?
It was usually about it was a third. There was probably 20 different altercations that could have many of them did get physical. Some of them we were able to de-escalate. About a third of them were you just totally defuse. It's like one dude, he's like drunk as a skunk. A bartender had cut him off. He was pissed, and I always got sent in. Unless it was something that just erupted. Yeah. If it was an escalating situation, send Jesse in, because they're never going to see it coming. First of all, I was, my vocabulary and my demeanor most of the time could de-escalate, but this dude was ready to fight somebody, and he's balling up his fist and he's yelling profanities at me, and he just goes to lean back like this. I don't know where this came from, but I've been studying a little bit of NLP, so I knew something about this thing called pattern interrupt. So I was like, I think your mom goes to church with my mom. And he was like, huh? And I said, yeah, where's your mom go to church? And he's like, Holy Redeemer? I'm like, Holy Redeemer. Yes. What's your mom's name? He's like, whatever, Maria. I'm like, Maria, my mom's Diane. I swear they know each other. And he was like, helpless, because it took him out, the association to mom. Right. And it's like, well, this guy might be my friend. Plus I was acting super chill. Right. And I ended up getting him a Coke, and we sat and chatted until he was chill, and that was that. So stuff like that would happen about a third of the time. Yeah. Another third of the time, we would come up with different ways to make sure that they left without getting physical, because there's a lot of paperwork and you might hurt somebody. Yes. Yeah. So they get through the bar and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I got this idea one time I bought some Oragel that numbs your mouth for cold sores and stuff. And I was like, I wonder if this will work, because guys would always hide their last drink after they've been cut off. So this other bouncer, Milo, would go and talk to him, and I would go behind him and just smear the beer bottle with Oragel. And then Milo would walk away, and this dude would just turn back talking to this woman and start drinking. Next thing you know, he's like a fountain. He's drooling, and he's going, I hear my hung. I hear my hung. And she's thinking that he just had a stroke, and she walks away to talk to somebody who's not retarded, and then the guy would be so embarrassed he'd leave. So we did shit like that a lot.
You really did that?
Yeah, man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then a third of the time, it would get physical, and you do what you have to do. Jiu-jitsu is very useful for that, because especially me, dude. I'm not gonna try and slug it out with I don't want to slug it out with anybody. No. But you take somebody down, or get them in a good enough submission. But that club started. It was right after UFC came out, so this is 93. That club started having fight nights. They called it virtual combat, and it was...
There's nothing virtual about it, though.
Oh, man. It was no rules, no time limit, no weight limit, and no safety equipment for the first few...
But you wore gloves, though, right?
No.
It was bare knuckle?
Yeah. For the first 4 or 5 matches, there was nothing.
Would you wrap your hands, or just straight up bare knuckle?
No, just bare knuckle, bare feet. You could wear a mouthpiece and a cup. But... yeah, it was. Once I knew that the club was going to go ahead with these fights, I realized
what did you fight in?
What's that?
What would you wear?
I wore gi.
You wore gi.
Yeah, because nobody knew jiu-jitsu, and so you just have access to a lot more techniques. But I knew that I had to fight, or ultimately I'd have to stop teaching, because I wouldn't be in integrity with the things that I was teaching if I didn't have the real life experience. Yeah. So I signed up to fight. That first night had 2 matches.
2 matches in one night.
Yeah, it was all single elimination. So they had 5 guys sign up, and first 2 guys fought, and the dude that won it was like a 10-second fight. He just put his head down, haymaker, and the dude was just out. It was like Jake Paul, if that really happened. And so then he gets the bye, and then I fight this other dude. We end up on the ground. I ended up choking him out, and now it's the other guy got the bye, and then I fight this dude that won in 10 seconds. And I just remember feeling like this is living, dude. Like, this is it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. There's a freedom in not knowing, and you're just going to find out how well you're trained. And so we're circling, and the guy just came in with that haymaker, and I just leaned back and side kicked him, and he ran into that side kick. Like, the heel was like right in his solar plexus, took all of his wind out, and you could just see, like, when somebody's spirit is broken, it's a definite moment. And that was the end of the fight.
Oh, the kick took him out?
The kick stopped him, and then I took advantage of his lack of confidence to intimidate him, which I was totally playing to the crowd. But I stepped in, I jumped, spin, hook kicked over his head, and then landed in front of him like Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he was like, he just put his hands down, walked out of the ring, walked through the crowd, muttering to the bouncer at the front. He's like, I got to work in the morning. And gets in his car and leaves. So the ref is like, raise my hand. So I won. Yeah, we're not talking like super high quality competitors here, including me. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I would know more on the other side of this than I did now.
Yeah.
So I ended up having 11 fights that year, won 9, lost 2, and was pretty convinced at the end of that most people have no idea what they're talking about in the world because they've never really been tested.
Who did the losses come to?
Really good ones. One guy's name is Alan Croft. The other guy, his name is can't remember his name. His instructor's name is Mike Rangel in
they were legit
San
martial
Antonio.
artists.
Oh yeah. Well, by then it started to attract talent, starting to attract better competitors. I went into one fight with Rangel's guy, and it was a classic rivalry. It was like their jiu-jitsu school and our guys, and we hated each other, and they were the bad guys, and we were the good guys, and it was insane. I remember going into that fight thinking, I'm going to hurt this dude. I've only ever had 2 matches scheduled where that was my attitude. And I got enough information during each of those nights that is the absolute wrong way to go into a fight. So I went in ready to put him in the hospital. And as it turns out, I end up on the ground. He's over me. He gets me in a heel hook, and he puts the heel hook, which is bad news. I'm like, I tap, and he's not stopping. He's on a mission. So he just fucking goes. And I hear it was my right heel. I heard my gi pants tear like sailcloth, like this. And then a couple of seconds later, I realized that wasn't my gi pants that tore. It was my meniscus.
Oh, shit. So they were bad guys.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know, man, I completely attracted that.
Yeah.
Because that was the energy of destruction that I was going in with.
Yeah.
And there was only one other night that I did that. And that was a God thing. The fight ended up not happening, which is good. But so I got my meniscus blown out. And it's funny because I had one of the dads of one of my karate students was a surgeon, and he was like, "Well, come in for X-rays." So we do the X-rays. He said, "You got a bucket handle tear in your meniscus, and like we need to do surgery." A, I was broke. B, I was like, I am pretty sure my body's going to heal. I just need to talk to it the right way and listen to it the right way. So I'm going to put off surgery for now. Let's see what happens. So then I just went to work, man, doing all the woo stuff that I somehow, a lot of this from growing up, we rarely got sick. We were doing, homeopathic remedies and macrobiotic diets and pressure points when you have a headache and, all that stuff. So I trusted my body, and something just told me, like, just talk to your body, listen, visualize and just know that you're already healed.
Wow.
There's this, 0.5% of your body that's not healed. Every other part of your body works fine. It knows what to do. So I did that for a couple months and, still was teaching on crutches, and then I'd wrap it in ace bandage. And when I was teaching, I could put weight on it. It didn't hurt. I wasn't even aware of it. When you're in that zone, when anybody, this I can say with total confidence, when a human being is completely aligned with their purpose, they do not experience any resistance, physical, emotional, mental, financial. There's no resistance. When somebody is completely dialed into their purpose and acting as a conduit for divinity. And that's where you're untouchable, you're unstoppable, you're invincible as long as you're in that alignment. So I'm spending hours and hours a day in that state of total service. I go in a couple months later for x-rays, and he asked me, he's like, which leg was it again?
Oh.
It was totally healed.
Wow.
So that was all the evidence that I needed, that the body's always listening, the body's always healing. Healing is even a misnomer because it implies damage. I don't perceive damage as just interesting evolutionary experiences. The moment they happen, they're largely over, except for the story that we keep telling about it. That's why this whole thing, the trauma industrial complex, whose main job seems to be to inform you of trauma you didn't know you had, and that everybody can go into these things and have a breakthrough, which is really largely extra pain and then getting you back to baseline, which feels like relief. But to me, that's like punching yourself in the face because it feels good when you stop. It's like, or you could just not do that. Like you can just not keep telling that old story. So those fights were instrumental. They cemented for me the difference between truth and usefulness. And I became incredibly skeptical of people who had a lot of certainty, especially when it was others that had certainty about them. Referencing your comments or your question about the original teacher or whatever else. I've met enough people who are big names in personal development, spiritual growth, health, etc., who backstage, they're totally different.
Yeah.
They're totally different. And that, it's not for me to name names, and I do think everybody is serving in some way, but some of the most popular titles in personal development, spiritual growth, I just know the story. And the story is this dude's wife was like, we need a new house. You need to write a new book. So then he goes and writes a very famous personal development title. Whether that was purely inspired or situationally motivated, none of my business. Yeah. But I just began to see these cracks in the mortar. And I've known since I was a kid that, well, why, like Bruce Lee is a great example. Bruce looked at everything that was and was like, that's cool. And like, I'm going to go and create something different. And so I guess in that way, it didn't happen too much later, but I always had the same question. And I always knew that anybody who felt the call to create something that was built out of their observations and experiences, but not a mimicry, and certainly not a direct passed down lineage, but it was something truly unique. I was like, why doesn't everybody do that? And so my approach to philosophy, and specifically philosophy of action, because if it sounds good, it feels good, but it doesn't result in behavior change or doesn't fundamentally change somebody's life in a material way, the fuck good is it? Other than getting together and mentally masturbate with a bunch of other would-be philosophers and everybody can just trade their ideas back and forth. And it's like, that seems like bullshit to me. Like, learn enough to get the action and go take the action and change the result. That's the only evidence of a worthy philosophy. So when I began to teach full-time online and I began calling myself the action philosopher, it wasn't the action philosopher, I'm an action philosopher, because the only philosophy I'm interested in is the philosophy that changes the OS enough to fundamentally change your approach so that you get better results. In that sense, I think everybody should be an action philosopher, but I also realize not everybody's ready for that. Not everybody wants to live a life of extreme responsibility, taking full responsibility for every outcome in their life. It's much easier to say, well, I would, but insert political party, insert ideology, insert family story, insert family constellation, insert all these things. Okay, If that's the case and you want to do that, that's fine. And meanwhile, there's somebody else who's got the same religion, same background, same abuse or worse, who's crushing it because they just decided to tell a different story.
Mm-hmm.
So I have so much respect for anybody that puts themselves out there as a teacher, especially if their teaching and their material is solid enough to be transferred to someone else who then has that passion. But I observe a consistent dilution. The further it gets away from that person's original experience, the more it gets culty. You see a significant drop in personal agency as people get fake empowered by being associated to the message instead of somebody calling bullshit basically and saying like, all right, social media, we can get you this many likes. It's like, okay, or let's have a competition right now. I don't want to talk about likes. Let's get up. You walk that way. I'm going to walk this way. We'll pass in the middle and we'll sit right back here and let's see who's made the most money by the time we get back. Because I guarantee you, anybody that I've trained can walk this lobby and make enough meaningful conversations that will result in value exchange. Meanwhile, I don't give a fuck about your likes and followers and all that other shit. I do recognize that a lot of that is still hyper sovereignty on my part. Like there's a chip on my shoulder. Like I want everybody to feel this freedom. And I'm better than I used to be at being as militant, not being so militant, because I know that everybody's at a different thing and, I'm doing my thing and they can do theirs.
What,
you're really good at this.
The podcasting thing?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. It's funny. I talk to my kids about that in this day and age, but like really active listening, I was a novelist for the better part of 10 years. And so, and like, even when we're in the group setting, like, like when it's my turn, like I'm going to run, like
you're going to hold court.
I'm going to hold court. Yeah. But then when it's not, like, I really want to listen. Like I really want to listen and I really want to learn. And I like the podcasting thing because you have your moments, you can tell sometimes through the podcaster when it's too self-reflective and everything's about them and their feelings. I find myself losing interest. Like I want to like pepper it, but like what's the story? Like, how did it evolve? Like where are the gems? So I appreciate you observing that. I have a little spiritual barometer test that I do after having been a yoga teacher for years, the better part of 15 years, and doing some kind of yoga teaching version of life coaching, just working with clients, not official or anything like that, but you just have the personal relationship. Like I'm so disinterested in the big picture thing that I'm always like, who gets up and helps with the dishes? And like our men's group, they're awesome guys, but there's like 3 guys who actually get up and help with the dishes. And that's my test. And you're one of the 3 guys. And there's some really successful, incredible guys there who are like highly evolved, but like who gets the fuck up and helps clean up, or asks, can I help, chop some cucumbers or do something? And it's like, there's very few guys in the group that honestly do that. And you're always one of the guys that do that. So I also, having been like chefing for years, because I have a high roll and a low roll sometimes, like my yoga teaching, it's kind of like what you were saying, I had a particularly high role, like walking in 30, 100 students, 50 students, the celebrity yoga thing. It was just a little bit, but it was not insignificant.
Right.
But I was still private chef. And now I still cook for the men's group. So it's like, you're of service. You're totally of service when you're doing something like that. And like, who is like, who's the multimillionaire who's like, oh, hey, I hired my housekeeper to come in and help you on this day. Like who has that level of awareness and sensibility? Like for me, that's the ultimate spiritual value.
Yeah.
I don't really give a shit whether you're going to attract 20,000 people to an event or something like how are you to your staff?
Right.
How are you? I was a waiter for years while I was in graduate school. Like, how are you to your wait staff? It's funny, like, cause there's like, I'm not going to mention the names, but like, there's one person who was an incredible like adventure athlete and now has a brand and a whole lifestyle. And everybody's some of the guys in our men's group are talking about him being on podcasts. And I'm like, I sat across from this guy at brunch, and what a fucking asshole. Like literally he was on his own Instagram post the whole time, showing photos of himself the whole time. Like I could give a fuck about what this guy has to say on such and such podcast, because I was in an intimate space with him and he was a total douche.
It's the test, man.
Total douche.
I call it's like, getting 4 margarita honest. It's like you get a couple of margaritas with somebody, or you do a few shots of whiskey, and then it's like, okay, what's really coming out? Because that's such a multiplier. It's going to strip away the bullshit. What's really there is going to come out. And I'm with you on that. It's like, once that happens, it's like everything else is I won't say fake, because I think there is some grains of authenticity, but there's so many people in this world who are world class at what they do, and they're such great human beings, and they just don't care about becoming famous. They just don't care about making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which I used to judge, because we grew up not poor, but certainly didn't have extra financial resources. But I never felt that.
Yeah.
All I felt was like, we're going to make our own toys, and we're going to make our own games, and we're going to invent our own games. And I think this is, at the time of this recording and very end of 2025, it'll be fascinating to see a year, 2, 3 years down the road, what's happened to what I make a distinction between the knowledge economy and the wisdom economy. Knowledge is somebody referencing someone else. And you mentioned Paul Chek, who's had a huge impact. But let's say somebody is familiar with Chek's methodology, and they can speak about the methodology. That's knowledge.
Yeah.
But that's not wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom is knowledge that has been embodied experientially. And you've got your own scars and your own stories and your own mistakes and your own victories. And now it's become part of you. So where are we going to be 2, 3 years down the road where knowledge is worthless?
Right, because it's the ask of an AI, and you have all the knowledge.
Exactly. And AI is so much better at being fake than people are. So all the fake people, these fake ass motherfuckers who are out there acting one way while being another, AI is going to eat their lunch. I can't wait, because they're going to go back to do whatever else they want to do, because they won't be able to do that. They won't be able to do that. Just like a UFC fighter in UFC 1 coming in today and fighting any UFC fighter, not even close. Not even close. But the wisdom economy is perpetual. And if to the degree that someone, whether it's you or me, many of our friends who have platforms, who have products or protocols, to the degree to which somebody has the balls or the ovaries to be authentic, powerful, and clear, that's the degree to which they can write their own paycheck. But the unwillingness to do that, or the refusal to do that, and to cover it up with, shiny shit and like, what does the algorithm want?
Yeah.
You're just another cog in the machine.
Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me. You, and I'm glad we got to this point, because you clarified the question that I wanted to ask. Like, you, in my personal relationship, you very rarely refer to other people's knowledge, but there's always wisdom coming out. So the question I wanted to ask, like, where did that like breakthrough happen? Like, was that of course it was evolutionary, but like this whole, I want you to talk about time piercing, because it's an incredible mechanism for self-healing, maybe like the best that I've ever heard. And was that a combination of some psychedelics, your personal journeying? Like, so first describe for us time piercing and how you use that with your clients, and how that's this tool for self-analysis and healing. And then what was in the process of that, what was the evolution of time piercing and that development?
Yeah. It was about 10 years ago, about 2015. And I'll address the psychedelic piece. I have consistently experienced way more confirmation than revelation with anything psychedelic. I think there's very powerful uses. It's definitely, it's an extreme sport. And I think that there's way more people that shouldn't be doing them than should be, or who are prepared in various ways, which is why I don't make it a part of my work. I rarely talk about it. But it has served as confirmation for things that I already knew. And the time-piercing thing happened 2015. I was in California for a client had flown me out there, and we were just working on her business and her marketing, her message and everything. And she was about to blow up. So we did a full day on her mission, her message, her marketing, et cetera. We take a break from this very deep work, and, you just change the environment. So you're just not in the, the boardroom the whole time. So we go to this little bookstore, and it was in Encinitas. So of course, the whole thing smells like sage and Palo Santo, and it was beautiful. And she's on one part of the bookstore, and I'm wandering around, and there's this piece of some crystal looking thing, and I picked it up, and I was like, man, there's something to this. Found out later, it's this beautiful piece of selenite, and I'm so skeptical when it comes to people gushing about the powers of anything, because I'm like, well, let me see, and if it works for you, that's awesome. I'm convinced most of it is psychosomatic. But I'm like holding this thing, and I'm like, there's something to that. I feel like this is like an antenna or something. And I'm standing there, and I just feel good, but I feel like kind of weird. Like, what is this? And this has never happened before, never happened since. But I had a full synesthetic event where, synesthesia, like you can hear colors, or you can see sounds, not uncommon on certain compounds, but this is completely sober. And I felt a word hit me in the head, like it lodged in my skull, down through my spine, and lodged behind my solar plexus. It was the only time I've ever had a fully kinesthetic experience of a word.
Wow.
It was wild. And it goes, shoom, and the word was time piercing. And I'm like, the fuck is time piercing? Sounds cool. So I put the rock down, open up my phone, and I Google time piercing. And there's nothing. Page 1 of Google, nothing. I scroll to page 2, nothing. Page 3 of Google, where search terms go to die, nothing's on the third page of Google. And I find some obscure reference to some video game character's amulet or something, the time piercing, whatever. I was like, all right, that's not what this is. But the word stayed with me. And so we finished the work with her.
It is interesting that an amulet is usually a rock or a crystal or something like that. And you held this crystal, and this crystal gave you the word.
It gave me the word.
So maybe there is a little something there.
What it felt like is there was and again, this would be a great conversation to have with Mark Gober. But the feeling while I was there was like very interesting, and it was a certain frequency, obviously.
Yeah.
But that word stayed with me. And so later that night, after we finished her build out for her business, I go back to the hotel, and I just open up my journal, and I just write this word, time piercing. And it was one word, time piercing, capital T, capital P, time piercing. And I just looked at it. I was like, what is this? And nothing came to mind, but I just like, all right, let me just keep playing with this word. And I found, and it was a highly intuitive process, that while I was writing the word down, there seemed to be a certain state that I was in, and it wasn't a learning state, and it wasn't a generative state. It was just, I don't know, it's still hard to describe. So I just kept writing it out. And you look at some of those journals from 2015, it's like Beautiful Mind. Like, it's scary. There's like symbols and lines, and I'm just like, and it wasn't channeling. I've never checked out and channeled, but I'm just writing this out. And then I start to get all these other ideas start coming to me about memory and imagination. And then I start thinking about all these other different examples of how, like we, right now, you're in that chair, I'm in this one, the viewer, the listeners, wherever they're listening and viewing, we have this subjective human experience, and you as a single being could be having a lot of experiences at once. Hypothetically, you could put one foot in a bucket of warm water, and you could put your other foot in a bucket of ice water. You could be sifting sand through your left hand, and you could be, getting a massage on your right hand while eating cotton candy. And I realize this is like the weirdest day ever if all these things are happening, but you as the singular being sensing all these different experiences with different parts of your body would have an expanded experience. even though your hand is only feeling the sand and your left foot is only feeling the hot water, but you as the being that has these parts is having a richer experience, if that makes sense so far. My understanding of what we are as, and it's very shortcut and very cliche, but as spiritual beings having a human experience, which many people acknowledge, well then what's the rest of the spiritual being experiencing? Is it just one big spiritual being, like our higher self, that's just there with spiritual popcorn watching Adam live this life? Well, that would imply that linear time is absolute and extends to other dimensions, which I don't believe happens. So then what happens if you zoom up a layer, which is very simplistic, but let's say your higher self isn't limited by space and time, but is still experiencing itself through us here. But what about last Tuesday? Because for a higher dimensional being, last Tuesday is also happening right now. And so is next Friday. And so is 40 years from now. And so is 37 years ago. So all of these versions of us from a higher dimensional perspective are all happening at the same time. We have the illusion of linear time, so we think it's over. And subjectively for us, it is, except through our memory. But this is where it gets delightfully weird. And again, all of this is run through the lens of truth versus usefulness. The people who I've found most or least successful at applying time piercing for everything from healing to wildly nonlinear thought process that turns into $1 million business, the people who are least successful at that are the ones who demand proof. And they want to see the peer-reviewed studies, and they want to see all the science, and they want to have all of that. It's like science hasn't caught up with this yet.
No.
And if you need to wait for it to catch up, then you can time travel one day at a time like everybody else, and 150 years from now, science will prove it. I don't have time for that shit.
Right.
All I need to know is it useful right now, and is it repeatable? So another side quest that we have to cover on this part. If you take if we take your phone, and let's say your phone is on airplane mode, all that it can access is whatever is already loaded onto the device. So like the old school iPods, 64,000 songs in your pocket. Nothing gets in or out other than a hardwired file transfer. So it's not a receiver, it's not a transmitter, it's a container.
Yeah.
So if the phone's in airplane mode, it is a container. Most people live their lives in airplane mode, where all they know is what they've already experienced or what they observe around them that gets filed away. But when somebody gets off airplane mode, and there's a lot of ways that can happen. People use the term like awakening or satori, or I had an epiphany, or I had a mystical experience, or whatever. When you're no longer in airplane mode, all of a sudden this phone can play any song on Spotify, any track on SoundCloud, any video on YouTube, any website on the internet. Well, where are those websites? Where are those songs? Well, they're in the cloud, but that means they're everywhere. So in this space right here, this tiny, like smaller than the head of a pin, is every website on the internet. It's all there. It's all in potential wave form. And we can understand that because we understand phones and the cloud, and we understand that the phone converts that particular signal into a particular sound, like Kings of Leon, or right. or a YouTube video. But what if you took that thought and you just kept pushing that exact same thought? Wi-Fi 150 years ago would have been an absolute alien technology. Nobody would have known about it. There could be Wi-Fi 150 years ago and nobody'd know because they wouldn't have anything to measure it with. There would be no proof. So how do we know that thought energy isn't like some sort of cosmic Wi-Fi? Our brains may just be the receivers and transmitters of thought waves that already exist.
Yeah. Well, this is the conclusion that our friend Mark Gober comes to in his book about consciousness. That it's
which I still haven't read yet.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I haven't either. I read the summation. And I've interviewed him.
Well, but if that's the case, then every thought that has ever been thought still exists.
Yes.
In some sort of wave form.
Yes.
And I believe that our brains are the only things that we know of that can access that.
Yes.
So if that's the case, then the version of us at some point in the past that's physically having an experience is just experiencing a condensed version of that thought through physical form. We can experience that same thing internally. We can even dwell on it enough to where we start to experience it physiologically. But why does it only go that way? Because if thought exists outside the realms of this third dimension,
Yes.
well, then what about all the versions of us in the future who have made all the choices to be in a different scene, who are now remembering back to this moment? And what if that's what we call imagination?
I have to share some with you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so wild. So I wrote a novel called Tomato Rhapsody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not going to steal too much. Worked on a book for 10 years. Everybody thought I was wasting my 30s. I was crazy. The book sold in 4 days. It sold for over $1 million. It was a multi-book deal. And then between the purchasing of the manuscript and the release of the book, the 2008, 2009 housing crisis, the publishing world falls apart. Michael Jackson dies the day my novel comes out. And it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
I've completely forgotten that at one point in my life, I was a novelist.
Wow.
Okay. I got at it. Now, the book is called Tomato Rhapsody. It's a comedic historical fiction about the forbidden romance that brings the tomato to Italy. And then it weaves the whole history of the tomato and how the tomato made it into Italian culture and cuisine. And it's a story of a couple named Davide Marie. He's a Jewish Italian tomato farmer. She's the Christian stepdaughter of the town's evil olive farmer. And they have this romance, and through the romance, the whole history of tomato evolves. I got out of bed last week, and I got hit with this. It was like a complete entity of thoughts. And it was like, I wonder how David and Marie are doing this morning and what's going on in their farm.
Whoa.
And I suddenly had this thought, and I don't know what's from my interaction with you and prepping for this interview, but I had this whole thing of like, when you write something and create something, what if that thing becomes a whole life? And Davido and Marie and all those characters are now living their lives. And for like, literally for about 30 seconds, I just disappeared.
Yes.
And I was in this little village in Italy, and they had children, and they were living, and they had a whole life. And I was like, fuck, that's wild.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you're talking about.
My observations and hundreds of conversations, each one unique because of its creation, but the similarity. Whether we created that or it already exists and we tuned into that part of it, it makes no difference.
No difference.
It makes no difference.
No difference.
Like it's the creation just going to create.
Yeah.
So whether it's we're being created or we are creating, it's like breathing in and breathing out.
Right.
You know, it's two sides of the same coin. Where it gets interesting is, and there's a practice that we take people through in these time piercing workshops where. And there's a lot of there's so much.
So hold on, let me just clarify for the sake of the audience. So, correct me as I'm wrong here. Time piercing is the honing and training of one's ability to drop back into a timeline, to investigate it, re-examine it, heal it, learn from it, and then project your life forward from there as if you got the result that you wanted in that, or just learn the lesson.
90%.
Okay.
Yeah, 90%. This is very good though. Very good. By going backwards, it's simpler because you have an actual memory. So most people, we do a very choose your own adventure kind of a thing. And if I'm facilitating it, I don't need to know anything about their experience. You know, it's completely objective. It's all Socratic. So it's just asking questions that allow them to populate the answer according to what they feel they need. A lot of people want to go back to just before a traumatic event and be there with their past self right before they go through what for many people is the worst time of their life, and then be there for aftercare and to show their past self who they become as a result of this and give them those lessons now so that there's sense making that happens. So much of what perpetuates trauma is why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Well, if you get from your current powerful, badass self who doesn't really believe in trauma. It's a great meme. It says, some call it trauma. I call it spicy memory. It's like, welcome to Earth, dude. Like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Right.
And the more powerful the soul, the more spice in your recipe. So what? Like, ultimately, so what? Because the body that shit happened to doesn't even exist anymore. All that's left is the story and the representation of the story. Yeah. So we're going back and creating a better story, and the memories change. Not in a unhealthy way, like it never happened. No, it happened. It happened. Like, you shouldn't have gone to that Boy Scout camp, you know? It's like, or whatever. But that's like phase one. Connecting people through this field of thought from this particular time as a memory to that particular time as a lived experience. And that seems to create some sort of a vacuum. And so the 10% subtle difference between what you had said and what I'm about to say, we can project forward into like what we want to happen. And that's a very powerful, very reliable way of consciously creating your life experience. It's very masculine. It's the protrusion. It's the projection into the future from this state. There's the feminine counterpart to that, which is an allowing. It's an inviting. It's a receiving. And after going to this point or points in the past and creating this wonderful, beautiful connection between who you have become and that version of you, and over time, it just makes the memories better and better and better to the point where people are literally laughing about the thing that used to just petrify them, used to just paralyze them. And now they're laughing. And they're like, interesting evolutionary experience. That was a good one.
So are you talking people through this? Like if this is happening in a seminar, this is a form of like...
Yes, it's auditory because this is another one of the premise of time piercing and all this philosophy. Words don't have any power by themselves. Like, we can argue that and debate that, but that's not that interesting to me. Words don't have any power by themselves. However, words are magnets for human attention, and human attention is the single most powerful currency of transformation in this dimension.
Yeah, I always think if somebody curses you in another language, you're like,
right. Yeah, you'll be reading body language maybe.
Yeah,
but even then, it means different things.
Yeah,
you know, or some random guy comes up to you on the street, is like, "Fuck you," or anybody in the men's group is like, "Fuck you." Same syllables,
right?
Very different meaning,
right?
So the allowing piece, the receiving piece, where when someone has done this for their past self through this language, which guides their attention, and one of my roles and when we're training people how to facilitate this is that you're not a coach, you're not a guide, you're not a shaman, you're not a teacher, you are an architect of attention. And you're creating very specific language structures that allow someone to fill in that structure with their own stuff. That's why we can have 50 people go through the exact same time-piercing session and have 50 different experiences. They could even come back to that recording a week later and have a totally different experience because the Socratic language, the questions, the invitations, the assurance, there's a very specific frequency to it that is serious enough for people to know that like this is possibly the most transformational thing you'll ever experience, but it's so lighthearted because the presumption is you're fine. Like you're fine. Not only are you fine, you're indestructible. You can't even fucking die. Like you have this body for a few decades and you take your body off. Cool. Great round. Next, let's go. So is a real benevolence and playfulness to the whole thing. So when that past piece has been played with, and then there's just this beautiful receptive space that seems to invite memories from the future. So in other words, that version of you that might be, at one of your kids' wedding, that version of you that is watching the birth of your first grandchild, or holding your grandchild, that version of you that ended up as a partner in a company that goes public and now you've got this cash, all those versions of you. It's not possible to think of something in this dimension in the future. That's not possible. You literally, if you can think of it, it exists as a potential timeline. most people their attention is so easily fractured that they only put a little bit of, it's like making a 5-cent deposit into an account and sitting back and waiting for it to compound. It's never going to compound in time for you to enjoy it.
So, Jesse, when you use time piercing to gain new perspective or healing on a past trauma, is it something like that's when you really do it effectively? Is it a one and done, or is it no? You've gained a perspective, and now you have the training to go back to it time and time again. That you still need to keep looping this.
That's a very good question. Is more powerful with reps.
Okay,
but not as a have to, as a get to.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get good at playing a game? You play it a ton.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying playing the game. And every time you get a little further in the game. And it's very important to have dialogue with people to tell the story in a new way with these new distinctions. Because that's what recodes your neurology. It's what powerfully stimulates neurogenesis and the new brain cells, which then create a relationship between all the cells in your body. Even that part of your body, like my meniscus or my left lung that got collapsed in the second fight that I lost. Yeah, that sucked. But with the retelling of the new story from the new perspective, literally it's gone. Like I have nothing but love for that dude that collapsed my lung.
And how long did it? Okay, let's do this. I'm going to share with you something recent and personal. That's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the process that I've done, which is, I think, maybe like my own way of time piercing it. And then you kind of coach me and everything. So, okay. They built this incredible high-end gym in Austin, Texas, Westlake, the neighborhood, and there's some adult trainers there, and it's quite expensive. But then they have a youth training program there that's quite reasonable with this incredible youth trainer, like really high-end sports training. So I used to go in the morning at 7 a.m. and I'd drop my kids off, and because they were building up the adult program there, they let me work out for free while my kids were training, which was great. And then they're like, no, you got to pay something. And they're like, it's $250 a workout. I'm like, even if I could afford that, there's no fucking way I'm paying that. That's insane. And I'm like, this is what I can afford to pay, X. And they're like, well, this guy's not busy right now, so you can pay that, and that's great. So I'm training at the gym while they're training at the gym. I'm paying more than I want to still, but makes my life super easy, and I can be there to experience my kids training with this high-end trainer. And I used to train really hard. And then this trainer, who's a super guy, it's the manager that's the dick, okay? And the manager kind of like resents me. I don't know why, but it's just a bad vibe between he and I always. I'm gracious, I'm kind, and he just doesn't like me. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. I'm not obsessing on it. The only trainer that he can really control is my trainer. And so my trainer's getting busier and busier, and he's like, Adam, I can't work with you anymore. I'm like, well, how about if I just pay you because I can be here because it works for my life, and you just hand me a workout or you text me workout? Because then you're making time and a half. You're getting full price here and half price for me. He's like, that works for me. I'm like, great. I don't need the motivation. Getting the workouts is great. I know what to do. So that goes on for a couple months, but this manager is still resenting me. And finally, my guy comes up to me. He's like, I'm not allowed to work with you anymore. I'm like, my kids are here. There's 6 people in the gym. Like, who gives a fuck? He's like, I can't do it anymore. I'm so sorry. I'm like, this guy's taking like money out of your pocket just to be a dick. He's like, he didn't want to slander him. He's a military guy. He's like, it is what it is. So every time I go to the gym, I'm fucking angry that I'm still dropping my kids off at this gym, and it pisses me off. But the recreation of is, okay, I took the money I would have spent, I rebuilt the home gym. And now I work out with my wife, and my wife's getting in really good shape again. And we have this time together, and I'm doing all these like weird and funky exercises. And I've spoken to my buddies like Kyle Kingsbury, and he's mentioned do this. And now I'm doing blood flow training. So I'm getting workouts in 22 minutes that are amazing. So there's a real blessing that's come out of it. But every time I go to the gym, I still have a glimmer of that anger of this fucker and so forth, and how stupid it was.
Yeah.
So like, I'm time piercing this by reminding myself of I'm saving the money, I'm working out with my wife, my kids still have this great opportunity to train at this great gym with this other guy there who's really terrific. And it's a lessening of the anger, but the anger's still there every time I drop my kids off 3 times a week in the morning.
You've touched on the heart of something that most people don't even see. And that is we have an experience, especially experience a conflict with somebody. And then we freeze them. in our mind.
Yeah.
And then we freeze that experience in our memory. And then we can do some work from there to find the positives that happened because of that fucked up thing.
Yeah.
Or that fucked up person. Time piercing would say, if we zoom out, and his soul is also playing Cosmic Xbox with all these versions of him, and our soul is playing Cosmic Xbox with all these versions of us. At that level, we're basically almost the same energy. Like we're basically just God minorly expressed as this slightly different spiritual being that the lower in density or the higher in density you get in lower dimensions is highly individualized. We can, there's a couple of things. That merging between his communication and your communication that happened in those moments get frozen. And then we're thinking about it and we're feeling those feelings, which other people can feel, whether we think they can or not. Like everybody's always kind of the tuning fork. So he also has an association to you that is being fed by your association to him. So your associations are feeding each other and creating this thought form or this condensing of energy. And then it gets located to the gym and it gets located in your thoughts about each other. And I mean, multiply that out. And that's why you've got all this conflict in the world. You know, all you need is a word label for a certain type of people or this certain political party. And there's all that collective energy. So you got to be like a bowling ball covered in coconut oil, fucking solid, nothing sticks to you. And the way to do that is one way is to get curious about what might be going on in that person's life, like that morning, the day before, the week before. And this is really powerful for marketers, especially, is like get inside the story that someone else is having and leave our ego at the door. In other words, if you'd never had that conflict and you were just to do this randomly for somebody else, you know, a producer outside, a woman that might have driven by you in the parking lot, easy to make up stories about people we don't have any charge with. But when you start telling a different story, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. Truth versus usefulness. Is it useful to indulge temporarily in just telling a different story about what might be going on in this dude's life that caused him to act like an asshole to you?
Yeah.
If that was your experience of him.
I was doing that, and then I learned some things that substantiated that I could see entirely why he feels the way about me that he might.
Yeah.
There's like a high level of dysfunction, and he sees this guy coming in with these two healthy kind of young stud athlete kids and these close. I could see. Yep. I got some information about his life, his personal life, not appropriate. I'm not going to share any of that, but I could see how through a lens of inadequacy, there could be a resentment built up towards me. Yeah. Or towards what he's projecting onto you that has nothing to do with you. Exactly. Yes.
You know, it's like, you know, getting, I think it was Wayne Dyer that said, you know, if you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Juice. What kind of juice? Orange juice, because that's what comes out. Doesn't matter who squeezes it. Doesn't matter their intention. If you drop it, you run over it, you put it through a Rotato Express, you know, whatever it is, it's going to come out because that's what's inside. So, and I saw this as a bouncer. Somebody would be losing their shit when I'm literally just going up to them saying, hey, we're going to be closing in 10 minutes. Just let you know, last drink. We weren't closing in 10 minutes, but it was their last drink. And they would be like, ah! And at first I was like, you know, is it on? And then I'm realizing like, this person doesn't know me from anybody. I'm just getting projected onto as the authority figure because I'm here as the hall monitor being, hey guys, we're getting ready to close. And I was multiply that with every freaking human experience we have. It's rarely, unless outside of an intimate, connected relationship, and even then, so much of it is projection. But people treat us the way that we teach them to treat us, and our intention ahead of an encounter has so much more influence on how that encounter goes than anything else.
So I guess for lack of a better term, is the goal of time piercing, is the goal of a well-realized life to precede the time-space density engagements that we're going to get involved with? That if you're if the preceding energy that surrounds you is so loving and so elevated that it changes the course of events that might actually have happened.
In advance to your arrival.
Like if my energy were so loving and so uplifted and so inspired that when I walked in the gym, people just loved, oh, here's this guy who's with this amazing energy and things are just going to work out.
That's a big part of it. And also that will just amplify whatever opposing energy somebody has.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and I think also this is part of one of my courses years ago, that love, nobody knows what the fuck love is. You know, I mean, there's brainwashing and programming and all sorts of, you know, all sorts of things, but love as a frequency is infinite, I believe. But also it doesn't just mean like, I'm going to be loving to you. Sometimes that's not love. Sometimes love is an acronym that means letting others voluntarily evolve. So if somebody's intent on being an asshole, like, cool, go for it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's got nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with me. Like getting a letter from the IRS. Like, wrong guy. It's not me.
Mm-hmm. You do a good job of that, I've got to say. Like, it's one of the nice things about men's group. It's like, well, everybody walks in, there's an energy and everything too, but you have developed a preceding energy that lifts an environment. That's cool to be around.
Thanks,
so
man.
I like it.
It's just deep insecurities, that's all.
Well, whatever you're doing, it's working. So tell me about what's next, because you're evolving into, you're taking your show on the road, right?
Big time.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What's that going to be about? What's that looking like?
Conversations like this. Much more experiential though. Like we're really going to give people an opportunity to feel
public events. Like you're going to have like 20 to 100, 30 to 100 people kind of thing?
I mean, we're looking 100 to a couple hundred people per gig. So 44 cities throughout the United States. We're looking at the whole experience is about 2 to 3 hours. And it's, I mean, very similar to this. Is not for everybody, because there are people who are looking for spirituality and want it to look a certain way. Mm-hmm. And the moment an F-bomb is dropped, they just like freaks them out. Mm-hmm. And then there's people who are coming in who wouldn't consider themselves to be spiritual at all, but they're badass entrepreneurs and they're like in full scale mode. What's fascinating about this dialogue, and this dialogue is a mirror of the collective of people who show up for it. So there's no script. There's no marks that we're trying to hit. There's no milestones. It is pure improv. And the last time that a tour like this happened, we did, I think, 23 cities. Every night was a totally different material, because I would get out, on stage and I would just welcome everybody and I would say, man, if anything interesting or useful is going to happen tonight, it's going to be because of you. So why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here? And we start to get a zeitgeist of the room. And then next thing it's like, okay, all right, now we found the rhythm. We found the pocket. And then it's off to the races. And because the words themselves don't have any power, but they serve as magnets for people's attention, what ends up happening for people, universally reported, is they feel more like themselves than they have in a really long time. They realize how much falsehood they were spinning for whatever reason. And all of a sudden they forget why they were doing that. Mm-hmm. And then they're just like, oh yeah. Oh shit, I already won. And my body was the prize. Mm. Like the birth canal was the finish line. Huh. What if I live life like that for a little while? What if I live life as the bonus round in a game you already won, mm-hmm. and you're not competing with anybody, because there's plenty for everyone. If you're going to compete, you do it in a very situational way, like the football field or the mat or the ring. But even then, once that's over, like you are more connected to that person than you might be connected with most people. Mm-hmm. And in that way, they're a great teacher for you.
Yeah. That's always a fascinating evolution of a really good fight. Mm-hmm. Like the way those two fighters come together at the end of the fight.
Yeah. 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 It's so powerful. So yeah, we're doing the tour, and just the tour itself has so many little stories within it, because everywhere we go, it's everywhere you go, when somebody is in this frequency of authenticity and power and clarity, you naturally attract people that either really feel that within themselves, and so there's like a coherence that exists, or they feel the absence of it within themselves and they're drawn to attack you.
But just the context of the show, like it's like it's set up more like a one-man show. Like it's you on a stage with a group of people and you're interacting, and then you're going to see where it evolves to and everything. So, okay, so it's not like a live interview process in front of an audience.
We may incorporate panels, because there will be some other people that are going to be jumping on a leg of the tour that are experts in their own right. We'll do some panels. We will have local promotional partners who have influence with their community, and they'll be inviting their community to participate, in which case we'll bring the promotional, the catalyst really, and bring them in and include them in the experience as well.
Okay, cool.
But the bigger part, I mean, that's gritty and analog and granular and unscripted, and anything can happen. But we have a reality show that's going to be tracking this and following this. So no matter where somebody's at in the world, they can tune into the truemanshow.tv and check out these episodes and check out all this live breakthroughs that are happening, and check out the inevitable run-ins that we're going to have with people who are like, you shouldn't be teaching this, or you shouldn't be saying this, or whatever. And it's like, I'm up for all of it. I'm fully surrendered to this process.
Yeah. How did you get into sovereignty movement? And
never got out of it.
Okay, good point. Yeah. But I guess in terms of the coaching people about how to extricate themselves from the public system, like how did that come about?
Very accidentally, like same way as all this other stuff happened.
I'm talking now about, for those who are going to research Jesse afterwards, the dojo law.
Yeah.
And
Law Dojo is a good one.
Law Dojo, sorry.
I have done my best to be ambiguously branded. So, you ask 50 people what their experience of the work was, you're probably going to get 40 different answers. I don't put my flag in any one product or program or structure, but the law piece is fascinating. Like a lot of us, I experienced in early 2020 and mid 2020, where there was a whole bunch of presumptions that are being made about what I should and shouldn't do. And that made no sense to me. So when I was living at the W Hotel, I just moved in. They had one condo left. I moved in February of 2020. 3 weeks later, everything happened, and the building sends an email to all the residents saying, hey, you need to wear a mask, and da-da-da. And I just sent them an email back. This is way before I learned anything about the truth about law, the legal world and the lawful world, before I knew what a mandate was and wasn't, all of that stuff. And so I just sent an email. There we are.
Going limp dick on you.
It only has so much stamina.
You bored it.
So I sent an email to the manager of the building, and I said, I really appreciate you doing your best to keep us all safe. But here's the thing: I can't wear a mask because I have chronic ataraxic hypoxia. They sent an email back to, Mr. Elder, so sorry to hear that. Don't worry, you don't need to wear a mask. Now, chronic, we all know chronic.
Chronic, yeah.
Ataraxia is a Greek word, and it is a state of profound imperturbability. Described by the Greek philosophers as an optimal state for a warrior to enter battle. And hypoxia is the body's inability to get oxygen. So I have chronic ataraxic hypoxia. You might as well. So I'm sure they didn't look up the definition of the words. Bottom line is I never wore a mask. So I just knew from the beginning that, how does this apply to me? I'm not really sure. And, I had some great exchanges. I walked into Tom's Market back when it was on Riverside. I was on my motorcycle. I had my backpack and journal and just going to go get a bottle of water or something. And I pull into I go in the store, and there's, the guy behind the counter is like, you need to wear a mask. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to get some water. And he comes out from behind the counter. He gets in my face. He's masked. I'm not. I'm like, you're, I guess, not that worried. You're like so close to me. And he says, you need to wear a mask. And he hands me a mask. And I said, I'm good. Thank you, though. Thank you. I'm just going to get some water and then I'll go. And he's like, you need to wear a mask. And I says, prove it. And he points at a sign on the door and the sign had just been printed. And it says, by order of Mayor Adler. Remember that guy? By order of Mayor Adler, you have to wear a mask to be in the store. I said, okay, so the sign is the reason why I have to wear a mask. And he goes, yes. I said, got it. Hold on. So I reached in my backpack, pulled out my journal, opened it to a blank page, grabbed a pen out of my jacket, and I wrote, hey, Jesse, just want to let you know, you don't have to wear a mask. Okay? Sincerely, Mayor Adler. I said, my sign says I don't have to wear one. And it was actually created more recently. Therefore, it has more legal precedent over that one. Plus, it was handwritten, which is a higher legal lawful precedent than it printed. Now, homeboy doesn't know what to do. And I don't want to be a dick, but I'm also not going to, allow my rights to be infringed upon. So that just led to interest in exploration of history and how did all this stuff get started. And I've always been fascinated in the origin of the public school system and, the Federal Reserve and what happened in 1971.com. And all this fakery that's just been layered on as people presume that, I have to do this. Well, who says?
Right.
Who says?
Right.
Where does it say? And then I started to understand the vast difference between the private realm and the public realm. The Constitution specifically states that the rights of the individual to contract are unlimited. So you and I can create a private contract that we both agree to. And within the creation of that private contract, nobody else is allowed to intrude in the contract. They can't look at the contract. They can't ask about the contract. They can't suggest changes to the contract. And they sure as hell can't tell us what we can and can't do as long as we're not harming anyone, damaging them or their property, or violating any contracts we have with them. Those are the three things that would invite outside surveillance, support, interference, intrusion, enforcement. Mm-hmm. Did you harm somebody? Did you damage their property? Or did you violate a contract? If those three things are not the case, then whatever happens inside a private contract stays totally private. And it says unlimited. So if somebody decided to purchase something from you that was in no way harmful to anybody, and they said, I want to buy $1 billion worth of this from you, and they are a member of a private association, and you are a member of the private association, and you have both inked a contract agreeing to operate in the private, there's no limit to what you guys can do together. Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Oh, that's going to be a separate
conversation. That's a whole separate episode.
But you've been a great counsel to me in that Law Dojo has referred some really great consultants.
Yeah, this thing's about.
I think we shot our best load here today.
It's about done. That's funny.
It's wrapping up. You've been a great resource for me. So you've introduced some really good consultants who have helped. Because I'm like, I know it's the truth. I'm going to learn more about it. It's a 5 or 10 year course of learning, and then even more after that. So having some consultants to refer to and them breaking it down was great. So I'm organizing my business and my personal affairs through your referrals. So I really appreciate it a lot.
It's very exciting. There's so many people that are doing it. And the key is doing it peacefully. Yeah. There's no need to be an antagonist. There's no need to be afraid. There's no need to be angry at the powers that should not be. The only reason that they have power is because we give it to them. Yeah. And I don't care. Yeah. Like I know that I am living in accordance to my moral principles and to my spiritual values. And I invest a significant amount of time every day to make sure that's the case. And sometimes I'm better at it than others. But absent a victim, there is no crime.
Yeah. Last thing before we go, how'd you like Reign Supreme? I gave you a bunch of stuff.
Let me tell you what happened with this.
Oh, yeah?
First time I did it, I told you I waited until, because I was cycling through and I was like fasting and all that shit. So the first time I took it, I just wanted to just feel it and just notice what's happening. I don't think I told you this. It was on the day that I was finalizing a lot of my dad's affairs. So I went down to his credit union and went into the thing, and I had my first experience of Reign Supreme. And significantly added to the depth of the presence that I was able to experience while finalizing all this bureaucratic bullshit.
Oh, wow.
It was very cool.
Oh, cool.
So thank you for that.
Good.
And then the second time I did it, I was like, all right, let's get into some philosophizing. So I had a 2-hour block. I got to get caught up with the compound, and I just did a meditation and I started journaling. That directly connected to some older philosophies that I hadn't brought up in forever. It was like there was more bandwidth between the hemispheres or something. And all these old ideas are coming in, and I'm starting to see how they connect to the work that's coming. I hadn't received the details about the tour yet, and anybody that's even slightly interested in increasing their intuition.
Oh, cool. Good. Well, we'll put a discount for your people. We'll do ELDER 15.
Cool.
So when you send this out, anybody listening, if they want to order Brain Supreme, they'll get a 15% discount.
Amazing. Thank you.
This is a gift for you. This is our new product, MaxStack. I had that at the men's group.
I was so bummed when somebody else got this at the White Elephant.
Right. Mushrooms, adaptogens, aminos, and cacao. So in a base of ceremonial cacao and Ceylon cinnamon, it's a very thorough 24 ingredient profile of functional mushrooms, adaptogens, amino acids. I think it's the most comprehensive. It does not have the secret ingredient in it, but it complements the secret ingredient.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh yeah, so this is the other gift. This is my new favorite. It's a black stack and a max stack.
Oh boy.
So that's a 300 milligram micro, which is a little hot on the micro side, but great. And then a black stack together.
All right.
You're cooking.
Apparently so.
Flow state. You still train, right? Some martial arts or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, like 90 minutes before a training session,
okay,
it's going to be flow state.
All right.
And max stack can be a little bitter because we left it unsweetened.
Yeah.
So like I've cut my coffee in half, and then I add the max stack, a little bit of raw honey, and I do raw milk or raw cream, and like totally smooths the flavor out. It's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Loaded for bear now. Thank you.
Yeah. Dude, oh, look at that. Perfect timing. I love you, bro. You're awesome. Where do people find you?
The Time Piercer, Instagram.
Time Piercer.
Yeah.
And you
or
are.
Jesse Elder on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll put some links in there for Brain Supreme. We'll give some discounts to your people.
Cool. Thank you.
And then we'll continue.
And more to come. Thank you for the dialogue.
Yeah, man. It was great. It was really good to get to wrap. Yeah. So I look forward to
more to come.
Yeah, I look forward to our ongoing friendship. I'm going to miss you for a couple months.
Yeah.
It'll be nice, but it'll be sad. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jesse.
Boom.
Good job, Joe. Thank you.
Dude.